This is the After Party, live with Kim McAllister. Pick a couch, grab a drink, and settle into the conversation.
Hey everybody, it is the After Party Live. That's the wrong music, isn't it? There it is. It's much better. How's it going on this Travel Tuesday? Hope you had a good time at the Mark Thompson Show. Please click the like button if you can. If you can click subscribe, I'll love you that much more. Thank you to everyone who contributes to this show and who spends their time hanging out. Wes already popping in with a $5 super chat. Status post birthday. Thank you, Wes. I really appreciate that. Really kind of you. There's a lot of stories to get to today. We'll talk about the interesting things that are happening. In some cases, this picture that is up for the huge photography award, unfortunately, shows wildlife amongst plastic. So we'll take a look at that. Also, more changes at Disneyland. I don't know when the last time you were there, but one of the features that has really been there forever, Tom Sawyer Island. And now they're talking about getting rid of that to make a different feature, a different land. A lot of backlash and uproar over it. We'll also talk about Belgium. That is where we will travel today virtually for Travel Tuesday. So all of that is ahead, and I'm glad you're along for the ride. This next story, this first story, was sent to me by Julie. So huge thank you to Julie for this really interesting story. I'm fascinated because just under the surface of dirt at a farm in Denmark, this amazing find. Jewelry, silver armbands that not only were used as jewelry, but also as currency in roundabout the year 800 AD by the Vikings, found in what was an early Viking settlement and is now a farm in Denmark. How cool is that? Really beautiful, too. The half a dozen pieces of silver were found by this person who is an archaeology student and also enjoys doing some metal detecting at this farm. This is a college student who is studying at the Aarhus University, exploring farmland near this town called Elsted. It's a town north of Aarhus. His metal detector started beeping and beeping, and so he started digging into the soil, and he found a single silver bangle bracelet. A few days later, he goes back to this field, which he knows was an early age Viking settlement, and he digs up 6 more bracelets. The way it works there, and I don't think this is the way it works in America. You like finders keepers, we have that kind of rule going. But he had to alert officials to the finding. Well, he's an archaeology student, so he probably would have anyway. Experts have dated these items to the 800s. It would have been during the early Viking Age, AD 793 to 1066 in Scandinavia. This Elsted farm treasure is being called a fantastically interesting find from the Viking Age, which connects the town of Aarhus with Russia and Ukraine in the east and the British Isles in the west. In this way, they say the find emphasizes how Aarhus was a central hub in the Viking world, which went all the way to the North Atlantic to Asia. They say these bracelets were a form of money known as hack silver, which was an important part of currency during this time in the Viking Age. At one time, these bracelets, which together weighed more than 1 pound, would have been adapted to a common weight system, and they were used as means of payment and transaction, while also showcasing the owner's financial ability. They were likely produced in Denmark. One of them, this coiled ring you see up on the top left, resembles a style of bracelet from either Russia or Ukraine, and it was imitated in the Nordics. There's a 3-band shaped stamped ring which inspired similar bangles in Ireland, where they also became very common as well. Fascinating. Fascinating find. When something like this is just so close to the surface and it's been sitting there all this time. Wild. Another find, maybe not so great, looks like a skull. Somebody thought it was a skull. Sure looked real. It was found on a beach in California. Lifeguards thought it was a human skull. Long Beach police were called. After the lifeguards called it in Monday, part of its face was missing and it had washed up in the sand, so it was looking pretty real there for a minute. It wasn't real. The rumors, though, were spreading on social media about this grisly discovery. The police were close to launching a homicide investigation, but the medical examiner said, no, this is not from a human. This is not any type of skull. It's a plastic prop that looked real from a distance, not so much when you get close to it. Only in Southern California, right? I don't know if it's a movie prop or just a Halloween decoration. Kind of scared him for a hot minute, though. There are some bisons on the loose. Oh, no. Yeah, they're trying to round them up, these bisons. They are on the loose in Connecticut, which is, when you think of where bisons would roam, perhaps not the place. Although San Francisco's Golden Gate Park might not come to the top of your mind either. But police in Connecticut are on the hunt for these 3 escaped bison after one of them was spotted just wandering down a road. This is in Guilford, Connecticut. The bison was seen crossing Long Hill Road, then wandering up someone's driveway and vanishing into a forest. They say, said the police, sometimes the midnight shift plays tricks on your eyes. You got to rub your eyes and make sure that you're actually seeing what your brain is telling you out of the dark shadows that you're actually seeing. The officer said, well, today was one of those mornings. We happened upon a bison in the roadway. One of 3 to have escaped from 3B Ranch. If you spot them, say the police, please call us and don't approach them. They can be what they call feisty fluffernators. There was another fluffalo sighting on Monday morning in the same area. They say if you see any of these 3 amigos wandering around, we need to get them back home on the range. So call us, let us know. Hopefully they find them. This is such a sad picture. Look at this beautiful animal. This picture of this polar bear munching on plastic. The plastic hanging from its mouth. This photo is shortlisted for the Ocean Photographer of the Year 2024 award. It was taken on Kiepert Island in just off of Norway by photonaturalist Celia Kuhala. And she said it serves as a reminder that even the uninhabited reaches of the Arctic are not exempt from the pervasive grip of plastic pollution. The category also includes a photo of a dead fin whale, shark fins drying on a roof in Indonesia. So this is the Ocean Conservation Photographer of the Year impact category. I think that's pretty impactful. If you consider, I mean, this is not, a pelican with plastic hanging off of its beak in the San Francisco Bay in a populated area. This taken basically at what is a remote island in the Arctic. And look at the plastic, even there. Amazing. It's supposed to highlight the scale of the plastic pollution in the Arctic and the impact that it has on the regional species there. The polar bears face multiple threats. They are considered vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. It's on the red list of threatened species. There's a study that was done in 2016 that predicts the numbers of polar bears will fall 30% by the middle of this century. And look what we're doing to them. I know we're supposed to party and uplift, but I thought this was too important not to show you. On the other hand, these are deadly sea snails. Not the smiling lady, but what she's looking at in the bins. And these deadly sea snails might aid in development of new treatment for diabetes. They have a toxin, one of the most venomous animals on the planet. It's this deadly sea snail. And there's a study that was done, reported Tuesday in the journal Nature Communications, that the toxin in the venom of the geography cone snail mimics a human hormone called somatostatin, and that regulates the levels of blood sugar and hormones in our bodies. So, this toxin, called consomatin, could help scientists design better drugs for people with diabetes or even hormone disorders as well. These cone snails, they say, are just really good chemists. This from the University of Utah, the research done in biochemistry there. They say consomatin, which is in the venom, works with other insulin-like toxins in the snail's venom to produce a rapid, sustained decline in blood sugar levels that renders their prey unconscious. These venomous animals have, through evolution, fine-tuned venom components to hit a particular target in the prey and disrupt it. If you take one individual component out of the venom mixture and look at how it disrupts normal physiology, that pathway is often relevant in disease. So they say it's a bit of a shortcut, but somatostatin acts like a brake for many processes in the human body, preventing blood sugar and other hormone levels from rising dangerously high. In the snail venom, it serves a similar purpose, preventing blood sugar levels from recovering in the prey after the insulin-like toxin has driven them down. So, while they say somatostatin works on several different proteins in human cells, consomatin targets just one protein. And that, according to this research, could open the door to a more fine-tuned targeting of blood sugar levels. In fact, they say, consomatin appears to be more precisely targeted than the current synthetic medications designed to regulate hormone levels, like drugs that regulate the growth hormone as well. It also lasts longer in the human body because it contains an unusual amino acid, making it harder to break down. So where do they find this snail? It is indigenous to the reefs of the Indo-Pacific, grows to about 6 inches in length. It has a very intricate pattern, brown and white shells. Now, they say consomatin itself is too dangerous to use as a drug, but the structure of it could provide possible new drugs to influence human hormone cells, which could be huge. They say there could potentially be other toxins that have glucose regulating properties too. So now they're looking into this, how these toxins work. Fascinating. Also fascinating, this postcard. It arrived, well, you could say late. I'd say really late, 121 years late. It arrived at an address in Wales 121 years after it was sent, or after the date on the postmark, I should say. The Swansea Building Society said the postcard arrived at their address on Craddock Street with the rest of the mail on Friday. It was addressed to someone named Lydia Davis. The employees today think maybe she lived there back when that was a house rather than a bank like it is now. They say the address is correct. They're still at 11 and 12 Craddock Street, but it's 121 years later than it was expected. They say it's wild and a little spooky. The stamp is of King Edward, who was king from 1901 to 1910. They say you could tell straight away from the handwriting and the way it speaks, "Dearest, I could not." It was much of the time. Part of it's unreadable now, but it looks like it has the date August 3rd of 1903. The postcard, they think, was put back into the system rather than being lost in the post for over a century. The Royal Mail says, when an item is in the system, we're under obligation to deliver it to the correct address. And that they did. Doesn't matter how late it is, as long as it gets there. We don't know who Lydia is, but we got your postcard. Here is what is going away at Disneyland. Sayonara, sucker, to Tom Sawyer Island. In the name of progress and expansion, Disneyland is going to tear down what was this play area, Tom Sawyer Island, in what is one of their biggest expansions yet. It's being replaced with Cars Land at Walt Disney World in Florida. It'll be replaced with a new Cars theme land. And that's the way it is. They had this convention, D23, and that's when Disneyland announced the rides and attractions expected to debut in parks across the world in the coming years. One of these, the Avengers campus at Disney California Adventure Park, and an entire land dedicated to Monsters, Inc. at Walt Disney World. But a lot of people were saying, well, where are you going to put this stuff? Where's it going to go? So they didn't really want to talk about that at the time. They didn't want to drag everybody down, right? But now we know that it would mean removing one of the Magic Kingdom's oldest attractions, which is Tom Sawyer Island and the surrounding rivers of America, including the Liberty Square riverboat. So people are not pleased. Disney fans going onto social media saying they are outraged because these historic attractions mean something to them. They have direct ties to Walt Disney, and they say, why would you replace something like that for a land with really no ties to who Walt Disney was, just ties to the Disney movies? The versions of Tom Sawyer Island are found at Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland. The original resides at Disneyland, and the Disneyland Park version opened in 1956. It was marked by a Walt Disney-hosted catfish fry. It's kind of an interesting place in Disneyland. You are able to walk around at your leisure rather than rushing from ride to ride, so it's kind of a break. You get to climb this creaky old suspension bridge, see wildlife that's not animatronic, look at the viewpoints of the Thunder Mountain Railroad nearby. It has the unique distinction of being the only attraction personally designed by Walt Disney. They say it was a real-life manifestation of his childhood fantasies. So do we want to get rid of it, is the question. It's here, this is Walt Disney's words, it's here that we experience the story of our country's past, the color, romance, and drama of frontier America as it developed from wilderness trails to roads, riverboats, and civilization. He said, a tribute to the faith, courage, and ingenuity of our hardy pioneers who blazed the trails and made this progress possible. I guess we're ready to just let it go in the name of all the new shiny stuff that we want. One of Walt Disney's favorite places in Disneyland was aboard the Mark Twain. That's the steam-powered paddle boat that you see there, and it really is fun to go on that paddle boat. It's also a nice break, and they use it in the evening events. I think it's the Magical Light Show or the Mickey's Color of Lights. I forget what they call it, but it's used in that too, with princesses in every window. Tom Sawyer Island opened the year after that Disneyland opened. So they say it tapped into Walt Disney's boyhood, a poverty-stricken time where he yearned for a place to escape. So important to him that days before the construction started, he grabbed a hold of the proposed plans and changed them completely. with mysterious coves to explore and atmospheric details. He wanted his guests to feel that level of wonder. So, that's it. This whole free play area, the winding paths, the shade, the hidden coves. I guess at Disney World it'll be gone. I'm not sure about Disneyland. Let's go to something a little bit happier, for this fellow at least. How about the lotto of the day? This is an Ohio case where this man has a very, very lucky dog. He used the numbers from his dog license to play the lottery, and he gets this $50,000 prize. So he takes the numbers from the dog license, which are 10822, and he plays a pick 5 lottery drawing. He said he went to the pit stop, and he selected the numbers from the dog license. He said, I play 2 sets of numbers for pick 5. The number that hit was actually my license for my German Shepherd that I played. He said that dog is no longer with him. He said, I was shocked when I watched the lottery results on TV. I just sat there and I was frozen, like I couldn't believe that it hit. $50,000. He says the money will go toward taking care of some bills and giving a little bump up to his savings account. Very nice. Can't go wrong with that. We talked earlier about this Boba Fett. Remember, it was being auctioned off, a very ultra rare figurine. It's a prototype of this Boba Fett action figure made for the Star Wars line that Kenner made in 1979. It never made it to market. It's the J-slot version 2 rocket firing mailer prototype Boba Fett. It's now the most expensive toy ever sold. It was auctioned off for $1.342, so $1,342,000. 1.3. That's pretty expensive. And it's the most expensive non-prop Star Wars related item ever sold as well. One of 30 ever produced. It's the highest graded example of the 3 known to still exist, and it's the first one to be sold at auction. They made it as a prototype in 1979, but because of the risk of injury to children from firing the rocket, it never was sold, never made it to the market. So there was a similar Boba Fett figure that previously became the world's most expensive vintage toy when it was auctioned off for $525,000 in June. That was one of 70 prototypes made with an L-shot firing mechanism. But this is the first J-shot, 1.3. Wow. Can you imagine? I mean, it's not like you're going to play with it. I guess you're just going to look at it. That's some collection right there. Let's do a little science. How about that? Look at the solar flares here. This story from Sky News. They say late phase solar flares could be more dangerous for Earth's communication than previously thought. The latter stage of a solar flare could have more of an impact on part of the atmosphere satellites need to work properly than scientists had realized before. So a new study is suggesting this latter phase, known as EUV or extreme ultraviolet, could be just as threatening to the Earth's satellites with more energy over a longer period of time. We knew already that the first wave of a solar flare, which is the sudden burst of energy from the sun, can take out GPS signals and trigger radio blackouts. The secondary emission, though, was a little bit less studied. And now it has been studied at the School of Mathematics and Physics at Queen's University, Belfast. They think significant changes to the ionosphere, which satellites need to send signals around the planet, can disrupt communication completely. They say studies have indicated that the illuminated part of the Earth's ionosphere is very sensitive to variations in solar radiation fluxes, which can cause failures in technology that people rely on daily. Now we know. And lastly, SpaceX. They're putting forward a pretty risky mission. Here's the plan. SpaceX is about to send 4 people into the radiation belts. There's a big question mark over this whole thing. They say they're looking at all the boxes they set out to achieve. And the Inspiration 4, which I guess is the name of this item, they say it showed people from various walks of life that you can train for and execute a mission to orbit. So there's a man named Jared Isaacman. He's a billionaire. And he funded this mission to orbit Earth in 2021. It was supposed to be a fundraiser for childhood cancer. It was a 4-person crew from people of various backgrounds, no prior space flight, and they spent 3 days orbiting the Earth in this 13-foot wide SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule. So Isaacman comes back, and he thinks he's not going back to space again. But now, perhaps he will. He and 3 crewmates, including his close friend, former Air Force pilot Scott Kidd Poteet, as well as 2 SpaceX engineers, Anna Menon and Sarah Gillis, are going to arrive at Kennedy Space Center in Florida to prepare for the launch of this really experimental and more dangerous trip to space. This time, what you're seeing on the screen here, they're going to take Polaris Dawn. It's a test mission designed to push boundaries. They're going to spend 5 days aboard this capsule that'll soar to altitudes higher than any human has ever traveled, ever before, since NASA's Apollo program ended in the 1970s. The orbital path will extend high enough to plunge the vehicle and the crew into a radiation belt, adding another element of danger to this already questionable experience of spaceflight. This crew of private citizens will also, they say, open the hatch of their spacecraft and expose themselves to the vacuum of space. That will be the first time that this has ever been attempted by non-government astronauts. During this, the astronauts will be protected solely by a brand new extravehicular activity suit, which SpaceX designed and developed in just 2.5 years. So these civilians are going to put on this suit, previously untested in this environment, open the capsule, and go into space in the radiation belt. I don't know. I mean, it's an unprecedented mission. The Polaris Dawn, the first of 3 testing and development missions under the Polaris program that apparently Isaacman, this billionaire who's already been to space once, says he will jointly execute and fund alongside SpaceX. The end goal? Take the first steps toward validating technology that SpaceX will one day need if it carries humans deeper into the cosmos, including the spacesuits and the EVA, life-supporting technologies as well. After launch, the Polaris Dawn will travel into an oval-shaped orbit that extends as high as 870 miles from Earth, well into the inner band of the Earth's Van Allen radiation belts, which start about 600 miles up. The belts are areas where concentrations of high-energy particles that come from the sun and interact with the Earth's atmosphere are trapped, creating 2 dangerous bands of radiation, that according to NASA. Then after reaching space almost immediately, the crew will begin a pre-breathe process to prepare for the spacewalk, kind of like what scuba divers do to avoid the bends or decompression sickness. The crewmates have to purge nitrogen from their blood so that when the Dragon capsule is depressurized and exposed to the vacuum of space, the gas doesn't form bubbles in their bloodstream, which would be lethal. There's no airlock on this mission. The areas on board the International Space Station that serve as a special decompression chamber for astronauts heading out for a spacewalk. So Polaris Dawn will instead take a novel and different approach for the pre-breathing process that involves slowly decreasing cabin pressure and raising oxygen concentration. This will be interesting. Fingers crossed everybody survives it. But this trip will be full of firsts. You guys ready to go? Let's do it. It is Travel Tuesday, and we are going this time around to Belgium. Look at that. What a beautiful place to be. There is a list that I found on Lonely Planet of the best 8 places to see in Belgium. I have been to Belgium and added a couple photos of my own. The first place, they say, to see in Belgium is this amazing place, the best places to visit, I should say. This amazing place, and it is Brussels. Beautiful, filled with architectural masterpieces. Best for shopping, museums, street food. It's the capital of Belgium. It's the seat of the European Union and NATO. It's a multicultural city, great for art lovers, a lot of museums. There's a Grand Palace, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They've got the Maison Cochi, which you can tour on the weekends. Some affordable vintage shopping and a lot of flea markets and open-air markets here. And really good restaurants and cafes as well. They also have the country's famed Trappist beers, a lot of outdoor kiosks, snack stands, street foods, this type of thing. Number 2 on the list is the Namur province, best known for forts and nature and river views, and this, the Citadel. Pretty nice. It's known as the Land of Valleys. The landlocked province of Namur in the Wallonia region is rich in rivers and cliffs and rolling farm hills and the lush greenery of the Ardennes. And then there's this. It's a postcard-perfect, mighty citadel perched right on top of limestone cliffs. They say it's a really good day trip destination. So you can cruise around town, along the river, ride a cable car up to the fortress, take in the sweeping views, enjoy the scenery from a cafe while tasting regional specialties. One of them, this hard biscuit that comes in different shapes. Made of equal parts wheat flour and honey, it can apparently be kept indefinitely. So they say it's a good souvenir to take back home. But beautiful. They say you're very close to the city of Namur as well, capital of this province and this region. And this, one of Europe's largest citadels. There's also the adults-only museum, Musée Félicien Rops, which exhibits the life and the work of this scandalous 19th century Belgian artist. And then, why don't we go to Bruges? Bruges. Look at that. So pretty. This is a city that's best for wandering and romantic escapes. Yes, please. They say it feels like you're stepping into a fairy tale, often called the Venice of the North. There's a network of tree-lined canals in Bruges, cobblestone streets, well-preserved architecture, medieval buildings look like little gingerbread houses. There's a lot of red Gothic brick. It was the birthplace of the Flemish primitive painting. It's also, Bruges, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They have good chocolate in Bruges. You can catch a crisp Belgian beer on about every corner of the city. So pretty fun. There's also a fine art museum with a Flemish primitive collection. It's called the Groningen Museum. So, but very romantic, very sweet place to go. The next one of the 8 best places to visit in Belgium, Antwerp. How beautiful is that? It's best for fashion and design. Home to the world-renowned Royal Academy of Fine Arts, Antwerp, Belgium's second city is also, they say, its coolest. Some of the fashion's top creatives come from here. Balenciaga's Dema Gvasalia. They all have connections to Antwerp. There's a few that have opened shops here that are worth a visit. There are trendy shops in other areas in what's called the Fashion District. There's a fashion museum called MoMu. But Antwerp also has a visual edge because of the architectural styles here. Contemporary projects and medieval buildings, all in this same area. So pretty cool. And then, why don't we take a little trip to the Belgian coast? Pretty nice. The Belgian coast stretches for 40 miles. So you can visit multiple towns in a single visit. They've got a tram, a coastal tram that's one of the longest in the world. It's called De Kust Tram. It starts near the French border at De Panne, and it travels all the way to Knockheist near the Dutch border. It makes 67 stops along the way. The complete journey takes 2.5 hours, and you get to admire the coastline in its entirety. You can jump off whenever you want without having to worry about parking. They say the 2 must stops are De Haan and Oostdunkirk. Beautiful, small village charm. The low beachfront made up of the Belle Epoque architecture, I can say the word. Unspoiled grassy dunes they have. They say it's love at first sight for people that go here. Lots of sweet treats. There's high tea along the way. Pretty special, the Belgian coast. Next, we're headed to Ghent. Look at that. Look at those buildings. Here's another shot of Ghent. Just wow. They say this town of Ghent is best for a quirky weekend break. It's between Brussels and Bruges, and it is, they say, the best of Belgian cities. There are winding canals, medieval architecture, museums, cobblestone alleyways, shops, restaurants. There's also the largest student population in Belgium. So it's a kind of a young vibe in this city. An unconventional creative community, a big music scene, plant-based menus at restaurants all around. It's called the vegetarian capital of Europe. Since 2009, Ghent has held the UNESCO Creative City of Music title. There's the first silent disco. They have performances, live music on the street, and there's a record label called Kinky Star. You can go visit that as well. Then let's go to the town of Spa, Belgium. Yes, a town named Spa. And it's the best for thermal hot springs and well-being. Spas around the world take their name from this peaceful, breathtaking town. Also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The town of Spa, known for its healing thermal springs and its lightly sparkling mineral water. Here's one of the spas there. That looks really cool. It's home also to the world's first casino as well. But the spas, one of them, the most famous, is called Therme de Spa. It's a modern and surprisingly affordable spa in the hills. They've been at that for more than 150 years. Got to go to Spa, Belgium. Best for nature in Belgium is this, the Hoge Kempen National Park. It sure is pretty. It's the only national park in Belgium, a former coal mining site. It opened in 2006 because of a cooperative conservation effort between businesses, government agencies, and environmental organizations. Its 22 square mile nature reserve, pine forest, lush landscape, evergreen trees, purple flowering shrubs in August and September. Right next to these expansive artificial waterways, it's inhabited today by more than 6,000 species of flora and fauna, which is impressive because of its industrial history. There are many entrances to this park, so there's a lot of different places to go inside of it. Next one is... oh, that's the park as well. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the purple flowers. Yeah, gorgeous. So that's the list as far as Lonely Planet goes, but here are some places I went that I thought were really special. This is a foxhole from World War II. It was dug during the Battle of the Bulge, called by Winston Churchill the greatest American battle of the war, and it was also, they say, the bloodiest. The areas here, you walk into this forest and you can see these foxholes that are still like they were when the troops walked away from them. This battle went on and on and on and on near this little town nearby. The town changed hands 6 times. But when you walk, and there's a parking lot, and it's not more than, I would say, 50 steps until you're in this forest looking at multiple foxholes. And it's almost like you can visualize the war and the battle that happened there. Really incredible. Another place that I went was this place, Bastogne. That's the town of Bastogne, France. It is really interesting. There are military memorials on nearly every street corner, museums, little plaques everywhere honoring different troops. A lot of American plaques here. Tanks, as you see. The equipment left behind and now preserved. It's like the whole town is a museum almost, except there are really great restaurants and it's really interesting to walk around. That's Bastogne. And then you can stay where I stayed. This is Chateau de Hassenville. It's a castle and you can stay overnight in it. It's pretty cool. It dates back to the 17th century and was apparently built as a hunting lodge for the King of France at the time, but the king never even went there, never stayed there, never stopped by. They did a complete renovation in the 1980s, and now it's a hotel with 20 unique rooms and suites. They're all decorated differently. There's a very fancy restaurant called Le Grand Pavillon, and they have the most amazing breakfast in the morning in a sunroom. There's an old game room, which is fascinating. It's just you walk in, the owner takes you around on a tour, shows you the tapestries on the walls in the dining room, which have been there since this place was built in the 1700s. You really feel like you stepped back in time. As far as these rooms renovated in the 1980s, I'll say they've seen better days. And it's kind of a little creepy because you wonder what happened in these rooms and who stayed there. Like how many people died in this castle? The rooms definitely could use an upgrade, but as far as an experience and just an amazing place to stay, highly recommended. So if anyone's thinking of going to Belgium, this again is called the Chateau de Hassenville. There are pathways and hiking areas all around this chateau. So pretty good. And the little town has a bunch of restaurants. Kind of an interesting story. We went to an Italian restaurant in town. I was traveling with my best friend who always loves to go to Italian places. And we came back and we were talking to the owner of the chateau, and he was talking about the mob connections to that place and the interactions that he's had with the owner of that Italian place. So kind of interesting. There's also the domain of Caves of Han nearby as well. And Rahadesh Castle is in this area. It was the European castle transformed into a Hare Krishna temple, which is pretty interesting as well. So, kind of cool. And now we've been to Belgium. Don't you feel good about it? I do too. And that, everybody, is Travel Tuesday. So thank you for being here for it. I enjoyed it. If you have any recommendations for next Travel Tuesday, you can always reach me at kim@theafterparty.live or kimmcallister@gmail.com. 2 M's, 2 C's, and 2 L's. All right. I so appreciate you hanging out with me for this After Party Live. Please click the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show. Mo Kelly will join us. It'll be really great. If you'd like to do the meetup, make sure that you sign up. There's just a couple spots left on that for Thursday. And then Thursday night, don't forget to mark your calendars, set a little alarm, because 5 p.m. live at 5 on Thursday is the Nikki Maduro Show. I will see you right back here on the After Party Live tomorrow. Thank you for being a part of it. Now I get to go back and read everything in the chat. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Make it a great day.
The After Party Live would like to thank the following contributors and viewers like you.
Huge thank you to Wes for the $5 super sticker, and one that I didn't see, Doug, popping in with a $5 super sticker as well. Huge thank you to Wes and to Doug for helping support this show. I really appreciate you both. Okay, now back to the No.